I have this deer hide that someone has brought me that wanted some idea what they could do with it. So I am doing some auditioning, first of all, of the fabric. And this fabric, which has a little bit of embossing, I decided to use. I had bought some leather, which I laid down against this, and it's just not the right color. It does not complement this color in the hide. So I've decided to do this one, and I I wanted to stay pretty simple with the shape, so I made the shape just a rectangle. I laid this out and kind of auditioned it first and decided how wide I wanted it. And what my thought is I'm going to use about this much of it and make the tail either as a flap or as just part of the front of this bag. So it's all kind of an experiment, but you don't want to experiment and not kind of know what you want to do, because then you end up losing a lot of an important piece, which you will not get back. So I basically decided this was the size that I was going to do for this little bag. And then I turned it over and I laid it out and I decided where the top was. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do it with a flap, and I also made sure that I was in the middle with this tail, which is going to be left flopping. So I took this to the top of the fabric, and then I measured up 1 inch. In case I decide to do this as a flap, I want that much extra. Actually, I forgot about the seam allowance, because you want a little bit of seam allowance also. So I need to I'm going to add, and I only do 1/2 inch seam allowances. And the reason I do is because you do not need all of that extra bulk in, especially this heavy fabric. So I'm just going to make my line 1/2 inch higher. And this would be seam allowance. Okay, so I used a Sharpie so that I know where I'm cutting. And here's the other thing about cutting with any kind of fur or hide. If you just cut right straight through this, you are going to be really sorry, because all of this fur is going to go everywhere, and it is kind of going to go everywhere anyway. But what you want to do is get a sharp pair of scissors and pick only through the hide part. So I'm basically kind of moving my scissor up. Hopefully you can see without my hand in the way. And I'm just moving it up into the hide and trying to avoid cutting any of the fur. And so see, I've still left a lot of fur intact. If you just go in there and cut, you're going to have a big mess, and it's not going to be a nice clean line. You could actually get away with not even doing this as a seam. In the end, that may be what I do, and it probably will. You're not going to turn this back. It's not going to look very good. And so now I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. And if you notice that this behind here of this poor little deer who lost his life from the hunter, sorry, is not real even. Obviously, it's not real even. Now, I could come in and even this out, but that just gives it character and makes you know that that was, you know, an authentic piece of fabric or hide, basically. And now going the other way, it's the same thing. Sometimes it's a little harder when you're going with the nap of the hide, because it tends to want to get get in there. And so see, you can see I'm getting quite a bit more. But you see how this is going down? When I'm going with the hide, it's not quite as hard to stay up above that fur or hair. Okay, so I'm almost there. Oh, I'm getting awful. I gotta make sure I'm underneath. Okay, I think my puppy has decided that she needs some attention. Okay, so as you can see, this is not very much hair, which is what you want. It's definitely what you want. So be very careful about cutting. Here's my piece, as you can see, and I'm going to just take a look at it now on, whoops, wrong one, on this piece. And then I'm going to audition it to where I'm going to decide. Got a lot of hair. You might want to have a little vacuum around so you can kind of vacuum that off so it doesn't get all over your sewing room and on you and everywhere else. But that's not too bad. This is going to be really pretty, really nice, really nice. So I could either put this on the top into the seam and just have maybe open with a zipper like this, so it would look like that. Or, and I might want to do it this way so you can see a little better. Or I might decide to put this on the back side and bring this around as the flap, which I think I might do that. Now, one of the things that I'm going to run into if I do it that way is the seam allowance is going to make this just a little narrower. So what I am going to need to do is trim. But once I get this on here, and I will do right sides together, sorry, and I will cut this hide off just a little bit right here so that the seam will go, it won't go in the seam, because I don't want to stitch it into the seam. And I might just go out just a little bit, just like that, so that I keep my width. But there, again, is going to be an audition. So I'm going to decide on what my next step is. And I think the back side of this, I'm considering the back side of this to be a pocket out of one of the corners here. We'll see how that goes. That's my next step.